It's wild to say this out loud, but Shedeur Sanders hasn't played a single NFL regular season snap, and yet somehow he's already the most disruptive quarterback in the league. Not because he's breaking rules, not because his last name is Sanders, and definitely not because the media can't stop talking about him. It's actually the opposite. He walked into Browns camp, coming off a legit injury, barely said a word, and completely changed the energy in the building. While others were just trying to not mess up, Shedeur made it clear he wasn't there to blend in. He was there to take over. And the NFL? It didn't see this coming, because this isn't the kind of rookie story they're used to. The wide-eyed kid who says all the right things, waits his turn, and maybe someday earns the spotlight. Nope, that's not Shedeur. He's calm, confident, and surgical with every single throw. The locker room feels it. The coaches know it. But the headlines are still spinning, pretending there's nothing to see here. Here's the truth, they're not ready to admit. Shedeur Sanders is already doing what most rookie QBs can't. Leading, learning, dominating, and doing it all without needing the league's permission. So, why is everyone still acting like he's just hype? Why are the Browns hesitating like they don't see what's right in front of them? More importantly, what happens when the best decision they could have made all year becomes the one they were too scared to pull the trigger on? Because with Shedeur Sanders, the comeback isn't coming. It's already here. And it's forcing the NFL to ask a question it's not ready to answer. What if the future of the league doesn't need to wait? They don't talk about the mental side of rehab. Not really. Sure, they'll mention the timeline. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, questionable for practice, probable for return. But they never really say what it does to a player, especially a quarterback, when you lose control of the one thing your game depends on, your core. And for Shedeur Sanders, that's exactly what happened. An oblique injury might not sound like a career-altering setback to the casual fan, but ask any quarterback. You lose your core, you lose everything. Your timing, your mechanics, your accuracy, even your confidence. All gone. Add that to the massive media pressure, the comparisons, the fact that everybody thinks you're only in the building because of your last name, and it's not just rehab anymore. It's a full-blown identity crisis. But here's where things started to shift. No one saw it. No press releases, no workout footage, no I'm coming post. Shedeur just disappeared into the work. Rehab sessions, film study, quiet drills, no spotlight, and when he came back, no hesitation, no ticking off the rust, no dip in confidence. He returned to Browns camp not at the level he was, but a level ahead. His release, faster. His reads, sharper. His pocket presence, like he had a GPS in his cleats. And that's when it really started, that moment in practice. That one throw that made everyone watching recheck the depth chart. A fade route, deep corner, tight coverage. Receiver barely gets separation. The window is closing. There's no margin for error. And bam, Shedeur drops it in like a guided missile. Perfect placement. No overcompensation, no fear, just pure instinct and precision. At first, silence. Then, sideline murmurs, coaching staff leaning in, reporters scribbling in their notepads. Then Twitter lit up. They didn't want to call it the moment, but it was the moment where hype turned to substance, where questions started turning into quiet conclusions. But with every step forward, the swirl of distraction grew louder. People stopped talking about the fade route. They started asking why he was smiling so much, why the fans seemed obsessed with him, why he walked like he already belonged. As if any other rookie QB returning from an injury and throwing absolute dimes wouldn't be celebrated. As if confidence, composure, and actual on-field performance suddenly didn't matter if it came wrapped in swag. And that's when this stopped being just a comeback. It became something much bigger. Because when you return from injury stronger than when you left, and they still only want to talk about your smiles, you're not just dealing with competition anymore. You're dealing with a system that doesn't know what to do when recovery looks like dominance. And Shedeur, he's not just playing through it, he's thriving inside of it. Everyone in the building remembers that throw. The fade, the corner, the coverage. The moment everything changed but no one said it out loud. You don't need a press release when a throw speaks louder than headlines. It was supposed to be just another camp rep. Shedeur drops back. Defense is set. Coverage is tight. Receiver David McDonald makes his break, but he's barely got a step. The window? It's so small it might as well not exist. But Shedeur stands tall, doesn't flinch. And instead of forcing it or checking down, he delivers a high-arching spiral, perfectly timed, right over the defender's shoulder, dropping into McDonald's hands like it had GPS. Not lucky, not flashy, just surgical. The sideline? Dead quiet. For about 2 seconds. Then the sound built like a wave coaches shouting, players slapping helmets, reporters scrambling like they'd just seen something that wasn't supposed to happen. And maybe they had. Because rookies don't hit that throw. Not with that timing, not with that level of confidence. Not while recovering from an oblique injury that's meant to hold your body and your mind hostage. That wasn't just an elite throw. It was a statement to the staff, to the vets, to every quarterback on the Browns roster still trying to climb the depth chart. It said, "I'm here. I'm not asking for permission. And this job? It's already mine." But the most stunning part? Shedeur didn't celebrate. There was no high step, no finger point, no look at me moment. He just jogged back to the huddle like nothing had even happened. Like that throw was just part of the plan. And that's when it hit everyone watching. This wasn't momentum. It was command. This wasn't a hot streak. It was control. See, there's a big difference between showing potential and showing presence. Anyone can have a highlight, but when the entire building shifts how it breathes after you make a throw like that, that's leadership, that's respect, that's gravity. And Shedeur didn't demand that attention. He pulled it in without trying. That fade route didn't just silence the doubt, it silenced the room. And the scariest part? That was just practice. That throw should have been the conversation. That moment, the fade route, the pocket presence, the pinpoint placement, it should have dominated headlines the next morning. But instead, they wanted to talk about his smile, his swagger, his body language. They wanted to make it about his vibe, not his performance. He smiled too much. He looked too comfortable. He walked around camp like he already belonged, as if confidence was a crime. The narrative didn't shift because of anything Shedeur did. It shifted because certain people don't know how to handle a young black quarterback who's confident, joyful, poised, and refuses to apologize for it. Because here's the truth. If his name were Shane Davidson, if he'd come out of Alabama or Georgia and threw the same passes with the same mechanics and the same rhythm, that fade route would have been broadcast in slow motion with orchestral music and future of the league graphics flashing underneath. Analysts would have lost their minds breaking it down on every major sports desk. It would have been a certified moment. But this wasn't Shane Davidson. This was Shedeur Sanders. And whether the media admits it or not, those aren't treated the same way. Instead of praise, he got questions. Unnecessary think pieces. Concern-tinted analysis. Is he too polished? Too branded? Just another media creation riding his father's coattails? No one broke down his footwork. No one talked about how fast he reads the field. No love for the way his teammates started falling in line naturally around him. Because when a young black quarterback shows up with composure and charisma, he doesn't fit the mold. And when you don't fit the mold, they try to break you. We've seen this before. A confident white QB equals cool under pressure. A confident black QB, cocky. An outspoken white rookie, a leader in the making. A smiling black rookie, possibly too into himself. And it sounds ridiculous because it is. But for someone like Shedeur, that double standard isn't new. It's historical. He's just the latest one to walk into it head-on and refuse to play the media's game. No sound bites. No clapbacks. Just film. He doesn't need to soften his confidence to make critics feel more comfortable. Because while they're arguing about attitude, he's stacking good days, building chemistry, climbing the depth chart. And the truth is, that's exactly why they're scrambling. Because when greatness doesn't need permission to look different, that scares people. Let's just get this out of the way. Shedeur Sanders isn't trending because of hype. He's trending because he's outplaying expectations and doing it with the kind of precision that makes coaches stop mid-sentence at film sessions. The people calling him just hype aren't watching the tape. They're watching headlines. They're reading tweets. They're missing everything that actually matters. Because when you break it down, strip away the name, the noise, and everything in between, what you have is a quarterback who's winning reps, mastering concepts, and thinking the game at warp speed. This isn't a guy relying on raw talent to bail him out. This is a guy processing coverage shifts pre-snap, adjusting protections, and delivering balls right where they need to be on time, in rhythm, under pressure. That's not viral energy. That's football IQ. Ask anyone close to the Browns camp. Behind closed doors, these coaches aren't just impressed with Shedeur's throws, they're blown away by the way he thinks. He's asking film session questions that first-year guys just don't ask. Split safety disguises? He's diagnosing them. Late blitz pickups? He's sliding protections. Timing routes with third-string receivers? He's making those guys better. And that's the key word: nobody wants to talk about better. Shedeur isn't just performing well. He's elevating the receivers, elevating the pace of practice, elevating the overall sharpness of the offense without even officially being the starter. That doesn't come from hype. You think hype makes you lead veterans through post-practice reps with scout team guys who might not even make the 53? No. That's intentionality. That's the undeniable sign of a quarterback who's building real equity in the locker room, not from charisma, but from consistency. And while the headlines are stuffed with pointless debates, is he too confident? Is he media-made? Is he just coasting off his father's legacy? Everyone inside the building is seeing something different. They're watching the guy casually mastering a system that veterans are still stumbling through. They're noticing how his velocity doesn't drop off after a dozen reps. They're clocking the fact that his hand signals already match up perfectly with his receivers. They're listening when coaches say, "That's exactly how it's supposed to look," after a Shedeur-led red zone drill. That's not hype. That's proof. The kind of proof that reveals a simple truth most people miss. Shedeur Sanders isn't bubbling because the media is trying to crown him early. He's bubbling because nobody can explain how a kid coming off an injury with no NFL snaps is suddenly the calmest and sharpest guy on the field. And when that happens, you stop talking about potential. You start talking about plans. Yes, we all know who his father is. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback, he's Deion Sanders' son, NFL legend, Hall of Famer, Coach Prime, cultural icon. That last name, it echoes. It opens doors. It turns heads. It creates opportunities and expectations so heavy, most athletes would fold under them. But here's where people get it twisted. What Shedeur is doing right now at Browns camp, in the locker room, in front of coaching staff, has nothing to do with who his father is and everything to do with who he is. Because legacy might get you inside the room, sure, but it doesn't make you Cubone. It doesn't command a huddle. It doesn't fix your release after an oblique injury or teach you how to read a disguised blitz on third and long in practice with second-team defenders flying off the edge. Those things, that's not legacy. That's labor. And that labor? Shedeur's been deep in it long before he ever put on a Cleveland Browns jersey. Yeah, his father is Coach Prime. But Deion's not stepping into the pocket on Sundays. Deion's not absorbing hits from edge rushers. Deion's not up at 5:00 a.m. in cold recovery tanks or mapping out progression reads until his eyes blur over. That's Shedeur. That's the kid who could have cruised, clung to the hype, lived off attention. Instead, he took the scenic route, chose to prove it, step by step. At Jackson State, he didn't play like a celebrity. He played like someone with something to earn. When he followed his father to Colorado, critics said it was nepotism in shoulder pads. But what happened? He broke records, fought through pressure, took hits, got up, and kept throwing darts like the doubters didn't even exist. It's been the same pattern from day one. People see Sanders and assume spotlight. But what they keep missing is the work. Because this version of Shedeur didn't happen by accident. It's not a script written by his last name. It's years of repetition, study, getting overlooked, getting back up. And that narrative about him still being in his dad's shadow? That's not just lazy, it's disrespectful. This isn't Deion extended, this is Shedeur actualized. He's not running his father's playbook, he's building his own. One read, one rep, one perfectly placed pass at a time. And the truth is, if his last name wasn't Sanders, we wouldn't be debating whether he deserves a shot. We'd be wondering how the Browns got a franchise QB this prepared, this locked in, this young. So ask yourself, is he Deion's son? Sure. But the more important question is he Cleveland's future? Because based on everything we've seen so far, that answer's becoming harder to deny. Here's the thing about the Cleveland Browns. They don't just struggle with quarterbacks. They have a history of sabotaging them. And we're not talking about a minor slump or a few seasons of bad luck. We're talking about a deep generational curse where potential gets buried, momentum dies in meetings, and the phrase quarterback controversy feels less like a problem and more like tradition. Pull up the jersey. You know the one, the infamous Browns fan jersey with about 30 quarterback names stitched down the back like a sad scroll of broken promises. From Couch to Quinn to Manziel to Mayfield, this franchise has turned under-center chaos into an art form. And now, here we are again. A quarterback room full of questions. A defensive-minded coaching staff fumbling over buzzwords like development and patience. And at the center of all this, Shedeur Sanders, fully healthy, fully locked in, outperforming expectations in drills, reps, film sessions, you name it, and still somehow treated like a luxury instead of a necessity. The Browns are dragging their feet. Press conferences from head coach Kevin Stefanski are filled with the usual vague language. We're evaluating all the options. There's a quarterback competition. Shedeur has made some strides, but we're not there yet. Not there yet? What more do you need to see? Because while Stefanski and the front office tiptoe around the idea of giving a rookie the reins, the rest of the league is watching as o time. And wondering, how do you have a rookie this poised, this prepared, this smart, and still hesitate? And no, it's not too soon. That's a lie teams tell themselves when they're scared to make a bold call. And Browns fans have seen this movie before, talented young players sitting behind mediocre veterans while the season quietly slips away. Look at the room Shedeur is in. Dylan Gabriel's been inconsistent. Game tape looks shaky. Kenny Pickett? Still trying to adjust to a playbook not designed for him. Veteran band-aids, not long-term solutions. Meanwhile, Shedeur is stacking positive day after positive day at camp, leading reps, running free with second stringers, and making throws others hesitate on. But what does the team do? They get cautious, conservative, scared, and Cleveland has a way of turning fear into policy, of waiting until it's safe and then realizing they waited too long. This should be the shift. This should be the move that breaks the cycle. Because momentum doesn't wait for approval, it fades when you let it idle. And you can already feel it building around Shedeur, not just from reporters or fans, but inside the locker room. There's a quiet buzz every time he steps into the huddle. Veteran nod. Assistant lean in. Defensive backs chirp a little less. There's the kind of subtle energy that says, this guy might be the one. That energy is rare, and it's organic. You can't create it with media campaigns. You can't fake it with preseason hype. So why is the franchise hesitating? Because the Browns are addicted to indecision. They've mastered the art of almost rebuilding, almost making the leap, almost setting a culture. But Shedeur Sanders is not an almost. He's your window. He's your break in the clouds. He's what a prepared team would build around, not wait on. And that's the cruel irony. Most franchises dream of stumbling onto a quarterback like this, mature beyond his years, humble off the field, ice cold on it. But Cleveland? They've got him. And they might still find a way to waste it. If the Browns were the only ones hesitating, it would be frustrating. But what's really happening is bigger than Cleveland. It's something deeper, something the entire NFL is still wrestling with, quietly, awkwardly, and in real time. Because Shedeur Sanders doesn't just challenge the Browns' QB depth chart, he challenges the league's entire quarterback model. He's not the prototype, he's the prototype breaker. Think about it. What does the league expect a rookie quarterback to be? Young? Yes. Nervous? Absolutely. Humble to the point of becoming invisible? Pretty much expected. A sponge. A listener. Someone who smiles, shakes hands, says the right things, waits his turn, maybe starts a few preseason games, and then fades into QB development limbo, where he learns until year 2 or 3 or never. But that's not who Shedeur Sanders is. He walked into the league already knowing who he is, sharpened by experience most rookies haven't had, forged in the fire of pressure most players would collapse under. He's confident, but he's not needy. Charismatic, but he's not a showboat. Disciplined, but he's not bland. He's all of it at once. And that freaks people out, because the league doesn't have a box for that kind of QB. They know what to do with the cannon-armed wildcard. They know what to do with the steady but boring game manager. They love the polite, slow-developing rookie who just wants to learn. But what do they do with the guy who walks in with presence, smiles at pressure, owns the room without trying, and then throws a perfect 20-yard out while people whisper about whether he's too confident? They don't know what to do. So they invent distractions. Is he too polished? Is he a product of social media? Is he too tied to his father's brand? Spoiler, none of that matters. You can't brand your way to reading coverages in 2.4 seconds. You can't Instagram your way to connecting with your second-string receivers during post-practice reps. None of it sticks not when the tape says you're the most locked-in rookie in the AFC right now. And here's where it gets real. If Shedeur were quieter, if he dimmed himself down, pretended he was just lucky to be here, the machine would embrace him. They love that character. The humble rookie. The "yes sir, I'm just trying to get better every day" soundbite on repeat. But Shedeur doesn't perform like that. He performs, period. He doesn't beg for validation. He doesn't shrink to fit the narrative, and most dangerously, he doesn't ask permission to be great. He just is. And that, above everything else, is what makes the league uncomfortable. They've built an entire infrastructure around the idea that young quarterbacks are supposed to wait. But Shedeur walked in acting like a leader, not a student. Not because he's entitled, but because he's ready and carrying himself like it. How do you respond to a player who doesn't need their hand held? Who doesn't beg for the spotlight because his game already demands it? At first, you resist. Then, you doubt. And eventually, you realize he's already past you. Because the NFL keeps asking the wrong question, is Shedeur Sanders the future? They're whispering it like it's premature. But what they should be asking is the league ready for a future that looks like this? It's easy to call this a feel-good comeback story. Quarterback gets injured, grinds through rehab, returns to camp, and impresses a few people. That's the surface version. But what's actually happening isn't just a comeback, it's a warning shot. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't crawl back quietly. He didn't slip into practice as just another rookie. He came back with a purpose, and he's been sending a clear message. This job is mine, you just haven't figured it out yet. And the crazy part? He's doing it without saying a word. No social media stunts. No podcast rants. He's not subtweeting teammates or giving cryptic interviews. He's showing up early, leaving late, staying after practice to build timing with backup receivers that most quarterbacks wouldn't give two looks to. He's hitting walkthroughs like they're the fourth quarter of a playoff game. And the staff is noticing, the players are noticing, the reps are stacking. But somehow, the league still thinks it's just buzz, just a storyline, just another Sanders name making waves when the games don't count yet. Except, here's what they don't get. The game's already started. Not the ones on the schedule, the ones in the locker room, in the huddle, in the decision rooms. Those are the games Shedeur is dominating. Right now, behind the scenes. While other rookies are figuring out the snap count, Shedeur's rewriting the tone of the offense. He's building chemistry, building rhythm, earning respect. Before he's even been handed the offense officially. That's not hype. That's momentum. And here's what most teams ignore about momentum. It doesn't wait around. It doesn't stick around until you're ready. It disappears the moment you hesitate. Right now, the Browns are sitting on a live wire disguised as a rookie. And while the front office stalls, while everyone on Sports Talk TV says he needs time, Shedeur is quietly pulling further ahead of every guy they thought was ahead of him. This isn't about raw stats. It's about feel, command, presence, belief. Ask the guys in the huddle who they'd rather follow into battle. Ask the lineman who leans over to listen when Shedeur calls an audible. Ask the receivers who don't jog routes when they know the ball's coming out exactly on time because they've seen it already. This doesn't feel like a comeback. It feels like a takeover. It's smooth, quiet, efficient. And by the time the media wakes up and says, "Whoa, Sanders is really making noise," the reality is he already did. They just weren't listening because this warning hasn't been loud. It hasn't been flashy or chaotic or emotional. It's been calm, controlled, intentional. Work over words. Focus over fame. And if Cleveland isn't careful, if the league isn't paying attention, they're going to look up and realize Shedeur Sanders didn't just fight his way back. He passed everyone while they were still making up their minds. There's something that happens when a team senses a quarterback shift, and it never starts with a press conference. It starts in the quiet moments. The reps after reps. The body language, the sideline chatter, the trust. And if you've been watching Browns camp closely, it's already happening. Because while the coaching staff is still playing the competition card, and the media debates whether Shedeur should even be in the QB2 conversation, the locker room, it's moved on. You can feel it in the way the veterans look at him, not like he's the rookie, not like he's the kid with the well-known last name. No, they're looking at him like he's the guy. Not official, but understood. Receivers run sharper routes when he's under center. Linemen take his adjustments seriously, not like he's overreaching, but like he's reading protections even some vets struggle with. Even defensive players, they talk less trash when it's Shedeur in the huddle. Not out of fear, out of respect. That kind of shift doesn't come from highlight reels or viral clips. It comes from a quarterback doing the work. Every day, every drill, with the same energy whether it's 7-on-7, full pads, or walkthroughs on a Tuesday afternoon. He's not trying to steal the spotlight. He's not politicking for Cubone. He's just running things like the job is already his, and the crazy part? Nobody's resisting. That's the kind of leadership you can't coach into someone. It's not forced, it's not formal, it's organic. The presence builds, quietly, naturally. And before anyone makes it official, it's already understood. Leadership in a quarterback doesn't start when the team votes a captain. It starts when the room moves differently around him. And that's already begun with Shedeur. Watch the sidelines during his reps, guys. Stand up. That's not by accident. That's signal. Backup receivers, they're sticking around after practice because he's pulling them aside for extra reps. Not to pad stats. Not to impress reporters. But to build chemistry because he knows leadership means bringing everyone with you, not just showing up. And the craziest part of all? No one's talking about it because the media is still stuck on will Stefanski name a starter? But the players already have. They're gravitating towards Shedeur. And player gravity? That doesn't lie. You either have it or you don't. And when a 21-year-old walks into a veteran-heavy locker room, doesn't say much, doesn't demand anything, and guys still start treating him like a leader, that's not hype. That's hierarchy. And it's already shifting. So while talk shows run another round of "Is he ready?" and analysts debate whether it's too soon, inside that building it's already clear Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for his shot. He's already setting the tone. The only real question now is, when will the coaching staff catch up to the locker room? At this point, the only thing more frustrating than ignoring what Shedeur Sanders is doing is pretending there's still something to wait for. And that's exactly what the Browns coaching staff is doing. Dragging their feet, sending mixed signals, hiding behind phrases like quarterback competition, still evaluating, and we're not ready to make that decision yet. Let's be clear, that's not strategy. That's cowardice. Because the truth is, they know what they have in Shedeur. They've seen it in the film room, heard the shift in tone during team drills, witnessed how the entire energy of the offense changes the moment he steps in. But acknowledging that, acting on it, that would mean taking a risk. And historically, the Cleveland Browns don't take risks. They play it safe even when playing it safe is what's burned them most. And this is where coaching decisions become more than just X's and O's. This is when indecision becomes sabotage. Because while Stefanski continues to recycle phrases like monitoring development, Shedeur is quietly developing faster than anyone expected. Outperforming veterans, earning trust, stacking moments that most rookies don't have until mid-season if ever. There's a wave building, inside the building, inside the locker room, even among the fan base. Everyone can feel it, everyone knows. So why can't the coaching staff say it out loud? Because coaches, especially first-time head coaches fighting for control, are trained to fear change. Not fear failure, fear of change. Fear of pulling the trigger too soon and getting it wrong. Fear of putting too much pressure on a young player. But guess what? That fear, that wait-and-see mentality, it's how this team went through more quarterbacks than playoff appearances. It's how momentum dies in meeting rooms. It's how talent gets smothered under caution tape. Shedeur doesn't need perfect circumstances. He needs trust. He's already shown the mental resilience, the football IQ, the leadership intangibles. This isn't about being ready in some textbook sense. This is about being right for the moment Cleveland has right now. Because when you've got a quarterback on the rise, who checks every box between the whistles? Who sets tone without saying a word? And the only thing holding him back is some outdated belief that Rookies shouldn't lead this soon? You're not protecting your future. You're wasting your chance at it. Cleveland's been here before. They've had flashes. They've had talent. But what they've rarely had is a young quarterback who looks like he was built for this moment. And here's the harsh part. If the Browns keep waiting for 100% certainty, they'll miss what's right in front of them again. And this time, they won't get another shot at it. Not like this. Because sometimes, your job as a coach isn't to wait until it's safe. It's to see what others can't, trust what your locker room already knows, and stop letting fear keep you on the bench instead of in the end zone. The most common argument against Shedeur Sanders right now? He hasn't played a single snap in a real NFL game. Sounds reasonable at first until you really look at who has. The league is full of quarterbacks who've gotten their chance. Thrown passes under Sunday lights. Logged official snaps. And still, can't hit a 10-yard out without making fans hold their breath. And this is where the conversation gets painfully real. Because if experience alone made quarterbacks great, the Browns would already have a franchise guy. But they don't. Let's talk facts. Dillon Gabriel. He's been inconsistent all camp. Late on reads, hesitant outside the hashes, still learning the system. Kenny Pickett? He's played real games, yeah, and also spent most of those games dodging sacks, missing windows, and struggling to find any rhythm. Veterans with NFL snaps. Veterans with experience. And yet, here comes Shedeur. 0 regular season stats, 0 official press conferences, 0 welcome to the league moments. And he's still outclassing them. The timing, the footwork, the confidence with the ball in his hands. It's not rookie energy, it's readiness. And that's what everyone keeps missing. Just because a guy hasn't played on Sunday doesn't mean he's not better than the ones who have. Because actual readiness doesn't show up in stat sheets. It shows up when the ball leaves a quarterback's hand before the receiver finishes the route. It shows up when your second-string tight end knows the back shoulder fade is coming because you've practiced it after hours. It shows up when the defense lowers their chirping, not because you're protected, but because you earned their silence. And that's what Shedeur is doing. He's making third-year players look like they're still trying to catch up. He's making every "but he hasn't played a real snap" take feel smaller by the day. Because frankly, if NFL snaps were the only currency that mattered, half this league's Q bones would be out of a job right now. What's happening with Shedeur isn't theoretical. It's not upside. It's not potential down the line. It's real, it's visible, and most importantly, it's repeatable. Every day in camp, you see it. Same footwork, same curiosity in film study, same chemistry with teammates who were strangers 60 days ago. He doesn't look like a guy waiting for permission to be great. He looks like a guy who quietly expects to be and is backing it up every time he hits the field. So yeah, no regular season snaps yet. But let's make one thing clear. No snap doesn't mean not ready. And if the Browns keep hiding behind arbitrary milestones, they'll miss what the most important people already see. The leadership in the huddle, the trust on the field, the respect in the locker room. Stats may come. Debuts will happen. But greatness? It announces itself early, and Shedeur already has. The NFL has always loved stories. The underdog, the late riser, the gritty vet who fought his way up the depth chart. But what happens when that story changes without asking? What happens when a quarterback walks in, 21 years old, smile on his face, confidence in his chest, not begging for attention, not playing the prove me game, but owning the role the moment he walks through the door? Usually, the league fights it, because when quarterbacks don't fit the mold, the system tries to grind them back into shape. And that mold? It was built decades ago. Unwritten rules about what a leader looks like, how a rookie should act, how confidence must earn its way into the room unless you look a certain way or come from a certain school. But here's where it gets dangerous. For the entire league. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't just testing that mold, he's shattering it. Not by yelling, not by dancing on logos or dropping sound bites, but by doing everything the system claims to care about better. He reads fast. He throws clean. He leads without preaching. And worst of all, for the old guard, anyway, he does it his way. No fake humility. No media-coached cliche. He smiles when it matters. He takes hits and bounces back like he was built for it. And none of it feels manufactured. It's real. And it's relentless. So while teams like the Browns stall, While media outlets debate whether his personality fits the role, they're missing the one thing everyone should be focused on. Quarterbacks like Shedeur are the future. And if you don't adjust your thinking, your system, your culture, they're not just going to challenge the league, they're going to take it over. It starts on the practice field, in the weight room, in the moments they stay late when no one's watching. Then it spreads to teammates, line coaches, coordinators. It flips locker rooms. It forces veterans to change their tone, not out of pity, but out of respect. And before anyone in upper management knows what's happening, the rookie you were developing slowly is already leading your team from the inside out. By the time the narrative catches up, it's too late. The league can't afford to keep letting quarterbacks who don't look or act like the prototype get boxed out. Not when they're already outperforming the ones who do. Because if Shedeur Sanders isn't their wake-up call, someone else like him will be. And the next one won't wait around to be understood. They'll just win. While the old heads ask what happened. And when they do, roll the tape. Run the film from Brown's camp. Watch the footwork, the reps, the reads. Watch a quarterback who was ready before the league was ready to accept him. Then ask yourself, was it really about readiness? Or was it always about control? Because when someone like Shedeur flips the script and writes his own ending, there are only two ways to respond: rewrite the narrative, or get buried by it.